Full time at the London Stadium, and it is finished. West Ham 1, Liverpool 2, thanks to goals from Cody Gakpo and Joel Matip. Welcome along, everyone, to the Debrief. We are live on the Blood Red YouTube channel after a very important and much-needed win for Liverpool. You join me, Patrick Smith, and Liverpool.com editor Matt Addison to react to that one. Matt, we were saying this morning, we've seen so many away matches this season. We normally do the debrief together after them. There's been so many losses. How nice is it to be talking about a win?
Yeah, really good. I thought that this was going to be a relatively close game, and it was. You know, Liverpool, especially when you think that they've gone a goal behind, they've done well, I think, to come out of that with 3 points. They were, in control for lots of that match, which I think is important. It's something that we've not particularly seen. I mean, even in the win over Leeds, they were obviously in control, but that was a bit of a freak performance, and West Ham are considerably better than what they are. But yeah, it was good. You know, they weren't quite so vulnerable at the back. There was still things to improve. There were still players that didn't particularly impress me tonight. But yeah, generally speaking, Liverpool have won. They've looked like scoring goals. They've had, a good number of players in there that I think were impressive. I'm sure we'll touch on Cody Gakpo and Trent AlexanderArnold shortly. But yeah, those two in particular for me look good. Curtis Jones as well, another step forward for him. And yeah, it's another step towards hopefully a top four chase, I should say. Easy to say that one, isn't it? But it was a good performance, and yeah, still a long way to go in terms of being fully convinced that they can get into the top four. But you never know. Liverpool have won and Brighton have lost, so it starts to look a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, we're convincing ourselves now that the top four could be on, aren't we? That is the question for tonight. But as you said, Matt, it wasn't exactly a vintage Liverpool performance. It wasn't brilliant. But they've started, don't want to use the phrase win ugly, but I feel like they are going to win ugly towards the end of the season. It's a very important habit to get into. It's something they've struggled with this season when they've, played well in games like they have today and been on the wrong end of the results. I mean, you mentioned Trent AlexanderArnold and Cody Gakpo. We'll move on to those. But the one who impressed me and impressed, the commentators the most tonight was Joel Matip. Obviously got that booming bullet header. But I think you were saying this morning, Matt, on our bulletin, you actually predicted that Matip could really thrive in this new tactic. And he did. On the ball, I thought he was amazing. And we saw him in possession so much, spraying those long passes, using that skill set we've not seen a lot this season.
Yeah, I think that is something that the other Liverpool defenders could learn from. I think it is something that they miss when he's not there. Obviously, they've not missed the sort of panic defending that we've seen from him a lot this season. But I thought he was a lot calmer and, won a lot of his headers. He did certainly better against West Ham today than what, Van Dijk and Canate did at the weekend against Forest. So that was good to see. It was a good performance from him to come in after such a long time. He's not played. I think he started a league game for a couple of months. So to do that is impressive to come in and play like that. But yeah, it shouldn't be quite as much of a surprise. He is a good player. We know how good he can be at his best. He was certainly in Liverpool's best team. I think he does really offer you something in terms of being able to step into that midfield. And like you say, we mentioned it this morning. I think it's, you can kind of argue it both ways in terms of maybe you want somebody slightly quicker to fill those out of possession, but certainly in possession. When you think of, teams even away from home like West Ham and lots of teams in the Premier League are not particularly going to be doing that much attacking against Liverpool. They are going to first and foremost sit in and try and defend. And if you've got someone like that to go in and break those lines just with, a little bit of a dribble and a step into the centre of the pitch, I think that just, helps to disrupt a defence. It gives the other players a bit more of an opportunity. And I thought West Ham did similar to Forest. Really, they did okay in terms of stopping Trent from getting into too many positions, but it just gives you that extra little thing to think about. And if you've got one extra player in that little zone that can make a little bit of a movement, or maybe take the ball forwards and just keep dribbling as he does sometimes and get all the way to the edge of the penalty area, you can kind of just bypass that. And obviously you want Trent to be the fulcrum of the team, but you don't want everything to have to come through him. You've got to have other players in that position that can do that as well. And yeah, Joel Matip clearly is one of them.
Yeah, really, really impressive tonight from Matip. I think he defended very well as well, because with this new tactic, we're seeing the main problem is sides are going to attack down that left wing and get in behind. But I think it's actually working out pretty well for Liverpool. I mean, West Ham didn't score from any of those opportunities they had tonight. Granted, they did get down their left wing quite a few times. But I think the way that Liverpool defend with it, with Trent sort of coming across and Matip also, it forces the winger wide and almost closes out the space. I think it works really well, actually. It's really clever how they're working it. But let's talk about Trent AlexanderArnold on the ball, shall we? Again, Matt, it's 3 wins in a row for Liverpool now, 5 unbeaten. Is it a coincidence and this has started happening when Trent's on the ball more often?
No, I don't think so. It's another assist for him, isn't it? It was, I mentioned the control before, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Liverpool are so much more in control when they've got him in the centre of the pitch. For all of the ability that Fabinho and Henderson had, even at their best, they're certainly not as good at passing and as keeping the possession as what Trent is in that midfield position. I don't even necessarily mean in terms of creation, though. Obviously, that would be true as well. I just mean the ability to just spray the ball left and right, take a touch and then ping one and just keep hold of the possession, really. And I think we saw that particularly in the second half here. There was a couple of moments in the first half where Liverpool were probably a little bit more open than what Jurgen Klopp would have liked them to be. But, second half, as soon as they got the goal, they were, just able to just take the sting out of the game. And again, they got a little bit lucky with the Jarrod Bowen one that was offside. They got one or two other moments where, a better team would have been able to counter-attack and capitalise. But the first way to stop someone like Trent being exposed defensively is just to keep the possession in the first place. And I just think it works really nicely. We've talked about it at length since they've started doing it. And the sample size is slowly growing and they keep doing it and it keeps working. So I'm sure we'll, continue to see that for the rest of this season. And it wouldn't surprise me to see them continue to work on it in the summer. I think, the new system certainly works for Trent. I think up to now it has for Salah, though he wasn't, West Ham still had a lot of players around him, which is not necessarily a bad thing because then it kind of opens up the space for one or two others, Gakpo being one of them. I think there's a lot more winners than losers, certainly, in terms of that new formation for Liverpool. It does make a lot of sense for them to keep trying it and just keep going with what they're doing because, ultimately it gets the best out of the best players. It allows them to control the game, which they hadn't done for much of this season. It can't be a coincidence. Obviously, the confidence and everything else grows from that. But yeah, I think you've got to give Jurgen Klopp credit. It took a long time to come up with a solution, but it does look like there is something of a fix there. And yeah, it's not perfect, but it's certainly a lot better than what it was.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's certainly more winners than losers in that formation. I think Liverpool really do have the players to suit it as well. It's actually quite similar. I was thinking, watching the game, to Bayern Munich a few years ago, the team that haunted Jurgen Klopp with Philipp Lahm, similar to Trent AlexanderArnold, right back in defence and stepping into midfield. Ian Robin on the right wing, similar to Mohamed Salah, with more space and freedom with that 3-2 formation. It's really exciting to see. Also, Matt, coming back then today, we saw Luis Diaz. A bit more action from him this time. He looks really sharp, hasn't he? He looks almost fully fit, surprisingly, for such a short turnaround and just come back from injury. It's really important we got him back for these last 7 matches, isn't it?
Yeah, last 6 matches, I think, isn't it now? But
sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he starts a game soon. I think to get more, he got more than half an hour. It was about 58 minutes, I think, wasn't it, where they made the double change. So, he's got another substantial amount of minutes into his legs. Maybe it won't be Tottenham, but I think at some point there is a start coming for him because, yeah, he looked good. I think Diogo Jota struggled, obviously, as he often does, really. He either scores or he doesn't score, and the rest of it, you can kind of give or take with what he offers. But it wasn't his best performance, I don't think. But then Luis Diaz comes on and shows a little bit more, and the game is a little bit more stretched at that point. West Ham have got to try and go for it a little bit more, but you could tell really he just seemed to attract a few different players at certain times, and I quite like the look of what him and Curtis Jones were doing, where they were kind of interchanging a little bit on that left-hand side. I thought Diaz was a lot more central than what we've seen, and Jones was able to go outside, and obviously Robertson's there to help with that as well. So, yeah, good signs for him, I think. It'd be nice to have something similar on the other side. I think, just to go back to Salah for a second, I think he was a little bit isolated in terms of the options that he had. Again, the other one, apart from Diogo Jota, that didn't look particularly great for me tonight was Jordan Henderson. Looked a little bit limited. I don't think it's necessarily the best position for him, to be honest. I think Curtis Jones on the left is a lot more suited to playing a little bit further forward. But yeah, in terms of Diaz, continues to look sharp, look good when he came on. And yeah, like I say, I think there's got to be a couple of starts for him before the end of this season. Just on the evidence of what we've seen so far, it does look like he could come in and start at the weekend. I'm sure they won't take any risks. They are going to continue to use him sparingly, I'm sure, to make sure that there's no gambles taken in terms of his fitness. But yeah, it certainly looks good, and it won't be long, I don't think, before he's back to his best, which can only be a good thing.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, I think he's going to surprise us all by coming back to full fitness a lot quicker than we'd expected. I was expecting to see him play the odd bit here or there, maybe 5 minutes at this point, then maybe half an hour towards the last 3 matches of the season. But who knows? He might even be starting come May. Another attacker who came on, that was Darwin Nunes. He's not been in the greatest form of late, shall we say. I mean, he looked a little bit laggy tonight. He looked a bit tired, if anything, tonight. It's a bit of a strange one. How do you think he went?
Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? I think for someone like him, I think you want to almost have that Diogo Jota situation. Again, I know I'm kind of contradicting myself in terms of I don't think Jota was particularly great tonight, but we've seen in the last couple of games that he's had a bit of a run in the team. He's been able to start and get some momentum and eventually got those goals and suddenly looked a lot more confident. I think, for someone like Darwin Nunes, I think it's similar, really. I think the difficulty is, you don't know where he's going to play in that front three in terms of, again, I suppose it was similar for Jota a few weeks ago. You couldn't quite see where those minutes were going to come from. Similar for Curtis Jones as well, to be fair. Suddenly he's had 4 or 5 starts in a row, but I just don't know where that comes from for Nunes, because you look at what Cody Gakpo has done. I thought he was excellent. Mohamed Salah is always going to play off the right, and then off the left, we've just spoken about Luis Diaz. Diogo Jota there has got 4 in his last 3 games now, so still not the worst form from him, even if he wasn't great. It's just hard really to look at that and know for sure where those minutes and where those 4 or 5 starts on the spin are going to come from. I'm sure there will be a plan for him, and obviously he can play off the left-hand side as well, so he's still going to get plenty of minutes and plenty of action. But yeah, it's a hard one for him, I think, in terms of the number of options that Liverpool have got. If you don't play well, or you have, however long he's had on the pitch tonight and don't particularly do anything decisive, it then becomes a little bit more difficult to see him in the team at the weekend. So it'd be interesting to see which team Jurgen Klopp goes for on Sunday. But yeah, on the evidence of the last few weeks, I'd be surprised if Darwin Nunes was in there, because he probably just hasn't quite done enough, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a tricky one for him because, as you say, he's not really had those chances with the form of Jota combined with, them wanting to get Diaz back in action. And when Nunes has come on, it's been, sort of seeing out matches. And, today, it wasn't exactly going to be attacking loads today. It had to sort of track the fullback as West Ham pushed back into the game. But the final talking point we'll end on then, Matt. The penalty shout. Now, Carlton Cole and Joe Cole were spitting feathers. David Moyes ran onto the pitch at full time to complain to the referee. Do you think they have any case for thinking it was a penalty against Thiago?
No, I don't. And they were annoyed about the one afterwards where I can't remember who it is that goes down.
Jared Bowen clatters Joel Matip.
Yeah. Matip, wasn't it? That's the one. Yeah. I don't know quite what they've seen in that one, because he clearly just takes him out. But yeah, the handball as well, I just don't think it is. I think the rules around that are slightly unclear, but I think I only heard Joe Cole on the commentary or punditry after the game, and I just don't think that he knows the rules in terms of the handballs. The rule is that if the player is falling and he's using his hand to break his fall, then it's not handball. We've seen that a number of times in the Champions League this season, and it's very, very similar. It certainly wasn't deliberate. He's kind of, his legs are up in the air. He's just putting a tackle. I don't know quite where his arm can go, and obviously it's a natural reaction to put your arm down to break your fall. So yeah, I don't think they've got a case, to be honest. Liverpool were lucky in 1 or 2 other moments. That the offside one that we mentioned before with Bowen going through, he was an inch or 2 away from being in and then scores the goal. But yeah, in terms of the penalty, I just don't think that wasn't a penalty for me. And I'm sure David Moyes will be annoyed by it. But West Ham have got bigger things to look forward to. They've got a European semi-final on the way. They're not going to get relegated. It doesn't really matter for them, and they weren't ultimately deserving of it anyway, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I don't want to go too harsh on the pundits, because you're obviously going to be emotional if it's your team. If it was Liverpool, we've probably been fuming ourselves. But then, of course, Matt, you've got the cool-headed, the referee-qualified Matt Addison to remind us all of the rules. Because, he's breaking his fall. It even, bounces off from the tackle into his arm that he's breaking the fall with. No chance it's a penalty. Absolutely nonsense if people are complaining about that one. But anyway, we'll end that there. Massive, massive win for Liverpool. 3 on the bounce, as we say. 5 games unbeaten now. Can they push into the top 4? They're only 6 points behind Newcastle and Manchester United. Of course, they both have games in hand, but you never know. There's still time to go yet. Make sure you stick around with us, though, on the Blood Red channel. Everyone will bring you Jurgen Klopp's press conference as soon as we have it to get you his reaction on that one. And if you want to see David Moyes' reaction to the penalty shout as well, we'll bring that one for you as well. But for myself, Patrick Smith, and Matt Addison, thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you again soon.